Every once in a while, a movie comes along. A movie that captures the imagination of its audience, inspiring a fandom that will carry the torch for the film long after it's been forgotten by the broader public. A movie so unforgettable, so remarkable, so absolutely unfathomably shitty that it must be seen to be believed. Today, lots of movies have ironic fandoms, but to begin Bad Review's quest into the heart of bad cinema, we're going to be taking a look at one of the earliest fandoms for a bad movie. If you want to talk about bad movies and the people who love them, there isn't a much better place to start than Troll 2. This is an all-new Bad Review.
My name is Daniel Steckley, and my obsession is failure. I believe that the secrets to success lie in understanding the mistakes of the past. I'm on a mission to investigate the greatest flops, bombs, and busts in every form of media. From movies to television, music to video games, anime and comics too, the things I review are diverse, but they all have one thing in common. They've all had some very, very bad reviews.
Troll 2 was one of the earliest films to begin amassing an ironic fandom via the internet. There had been bad movie cults before. You got your Manos, you got your Rocky Horror, you got your Ed Wood. But Troll 2 was one of the first films to gain traction via that uniquely online way to share video clips.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my God!
You've almost certainly seen that clip, but it's much less likely you've seen the movie it's from. Before the internet, bad movies had to be shared via midnight screenings, or copied video cassettes, or episodes of MST3K, but the internet created a way for bad movies to become famous much more easily, because now you could just watch a highlight reel of a movie instead of having to sit through the whole thing, and a lot of movies benefit from that. They just aren't a compelling watch if you try and slog through the whole thing from beginning to end. But Troll 2 is not an example of that. Troll 2 keeps you entertained at least mildly from beginning to end, if only just from the sheer confused desire to see what comes next. So why is it that Troll 2 became famous? Like, other than because of... I think it's because the movie presents a mystery to its audience. No, the story isn't a mystery. I mean, the film itself is a mystery. Specifically, what the fuck kind of movie were they trying to make? Wikipedia refers to Troll 2 as a B-horror comedy on its page, but then on the page for Troll 3, it refers to Troll 2 as a fantasy comedy. IMDb lists Troll 2 under the genres of comedy, fantasy, and horror, and sure, that is the safest way to categorize Troll 2, because damn near every scene of this movie has a wildly different tone. The opening is actually a fairly effective opening scene for a dark fairy tale fantasy in a modern setting, which is kind of a neat idea for a movie. You take the tone of the original Grimm Brother fables, and you just transplant modern characters into them. Cool. Could work, other than for the music. But, yeah, sure, a mildly dark fairy tale with some ghost story elements. Yeah, sure. Could work as a fun little spooky movie for the kiddies. So now that we've established an interesting tone, let's demolish it by segueing into an 80s teen sex comedy.
Elliot, what kind of idiotic joke is this? You scared the shit out of me.
I'm the victim of a nocturnal rapture. I have to release my lowest instincts with a woman. Oh!
Release your instincts in the bathroom.
Are you nuts? You trying to turn me into a homo?
Then, in one of the movie's two clever edits,
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Finally.
the film suddenly transitions into a family road trip film, like some kind of long-lost Griswold vacation movie.
Stop it, please! Joshua, start singing. Come on, sing that song I like so much.
I don't feel like singing, Mom.
Just sing.
Row, row, row your boat gently down a stream.
Merrily, 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 merrily.
Oh god, not Manos flashbacks, no! Then we jump back to the 80s teen sex comedy.
Are you sure it's full of beautiful girls, Elliot?
Lots of them free and unattached.
Yeah! Yeah!
And now a scene guest directed by David fucking Cronenberg. Then a scene where it starts to become a 70s backwoods horror movie with a bit of a ghost story thing going on, almost a little reminiscent of Pumpkinhead. And back to the 80s teen sex comedy. You know this is an 80s kids film because the kids can flip the bird, swear,
You scared the shit out of me.
and smoke. And then back to the 70s backwoods horror.
There's no one here.
It's normal. This is a farming community. Remember, at this time of night, everybody goes to sleep.
Yeah, most farmers are asleep by 4 in the goddamn afternoon. So, they're doing a house swap thing where a family from the village is going to move into their house, and the dad is just hilariously awkward about it.
You'll enjoy our city. It has some smog, it's a little noisy, but our house has all the major conveniences. Yeah, it's got a microwave and video, all the other appliances.
Yeah.
A refrigerator.
Listening.
Bar.
They're not listening. And I have no idea what the fuck the tone is supposed to be here.
Grandpa.
Don't let them eat, Joshua. For the love of God, don't let them eat.
Aren't you hungry, Joshua? Yes.
Stop them, Joshua. You're the only one that can do it. If they eat, they'll come to the same end as Peter in the story.
But how can I stop them?
Okay. You have 30 seconds to come up with some way to stop them.
Why does he only have 30 seconds? Why can Grandpa Ghost stop time? This movie operates on pure dream logic. Things just sort of happen, and you just go with the flow. So, the kid pisses on the food, because if the family eats it, they will turn into plants, and be eaten by goblins. And then John Cena will show up on a jet ski, and tell you that a tornado is going to tear down your house that's slightly different from how it is in real life, and this is why I don't eat cheese before bed anymore. And then we get a spanking fake-out gag?
And you can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it.
What are you going to do to me, Daddy?
Tightening my belt by one loop so I don't feel hunger pains.
Like, that's the thing. I am positive that portions of this film are completely intentional comedy, and the scene's one of them. Like, seriously, guys. He takes the kid upstairs in a huff, throws him down on the bed, reaches for his belt. The kid asks, "What are you gonna do, Dad?" And he tightens his belt instead of taking it off. It's a reversal gag. One that works because it's so off-kilter that the dad doesn't even seem to realize it's a joke. I also want to point out an interesting little thing here. Listen to what the dad says.
Okay, Joshua, you want to get rough with me? You want to show me that you don't like the choice of this house for our vacation by going on a hunger strike? Well, I'll accept the challenge. But just remember, when I was your age, I really did suffer from hunger. We'll see who gets through this. But just remember, I've got more practice than you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Wait, what? What? That's a pretty significant thing to just drop on us, especially considering that in the second scene of the movie, this same character is wistfully imagining the life of a farmer.
Just think, we'll be living like our ancestors did. Yeah, we'll be peasants and farmers.
This is the only backstory we get on any of the family, and it's just this weirdly evocative little detail dropped so casually. When I first saw the movie, I theorized that because the writer and director is Italian, maybe the post-war years in Italy were hard. Maybe times were tough and famine may have been widespread, and that could be why, you know, a man of that age having experienced hunger would be normal and not require explanation. But I didn't know, so I decided to do some research, and actually, as it turns out, Italy went through a post-war economic boom. So if the writer did experience food insecurity as a child and assumes that's normal, it's not necessarily because he was born in Italy. So I was wrong. I'm just leaving this in now because it's number 16 in the line numbering. And this has been your Italian post-war history lesson for the, you know, probably rest of your life. I don't know. I'd like to assume better of you than that. This is awkward. We then cut back to the sex comedy, which is interrupted by the fantasy horror. And they mix about as well as... well, they don't mix at all.
Let me give you some advice, you dwarfs.
get out of here, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Is this supposed to be a joke? Because it's pretty seriously undermining the goblins as a credible threat.
And remember,
Okay, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be a joke. And then we get...
This is my house.
I don't know, Rocky fucking Horror? Okay, I can't front. Credence is legitimately the best part of the movie. She does not give a shit, and she wrings all the camp she can out of this role. And also, am I crazy, or is she kind of weirdly hot? And then, again, what is this? What the fuck is this? Fucking Flashdance or something? And then Grandpa Ghost appears in the mirror. And this brings us to one of the biggest structural problems with the film. You see, only Joshua, the son, can normally see Grandpa Ghost, and his parents don't believe him that he's not just imagining it. But because Grandpa Ghost is the only one with information on the goblins, Joshua's main struggle, the central conflict of the film, is Joshua trying to convince his family that the town of Nilbog where they're vacationing is not safe, and that its residents are actually goblins in disguise. But now, Grandpa Ghost has appeared by mistake to Holly, the daughter, and she confirms for the family that Grandpa Ghost was trying to talk to Joshua.
It was him! Grandpa Seth was calling out to Joshua!
But this does not make the family any more credulous of Joshua! This, I feel, is the biggest actual problem with the film. Bad effects, weird tone, even bad acting are all forgivable if there's at least a decent story at the heart of it. And Joshua just plain sucks as a protagonist. He can't take any initiative of his own because he's completely dependent on Grandpa Ghost for information and instructions. So, as the movie goes on, it tries to build tension and completely fails because you know that the family are just fucking sheep blundering into a trap, and Joshua can't do anything except wait for Grandpa Ghost to poof in and give him his mission objectives. And the film doesn't try to explore any kind of character conflict either to make that work, where it doesn't try to do anything with the family being concerned for Joshua, his mental health, or maybe frustrated with him that he keeps trying to derail a nice vacation. No, it just sleepwalks through the plot. And it completely destroys any kind of horror or any kind of investment in the characters. Like, you just can't make a horror movie where only one of the characters isn't completely oblivious to the danger. You just can't do that. And suddenly this movie gets extremely gay.
You take them to bed with you, too. And I don't believe in group sex.
I have no idea what the tone is supposed to be here.
No eggs, no bacon. There's just a lot of milk, but it's all like this.
It's not funny. It's not scary.
It must be a week old.
I don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling here.
Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Dad.
Joshua should not be happy at any point while he's still in Nilbog. He is in mortal peril, and he knows it. And he knows that the family is completely oblivious to the danger.
No problem. Josh and I run in town to the general store. Right, Josh?
Okay.
But he is incredibly blasé about going into town to get food, even though he knows that is not safe, because he knows the goblins' MO is to feed people tainted food that turns them into plants, because the goblins in this movie are vegetarians. This movie is fucking stupid. And then we get Troy Baker going into town, hitching a ride with Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane.
I'm Sheriff Gene Freak.
Who gives him a delicious green sandwich. Then, at what is by my count the 18th scene in the film, we finally get a scene which matches the tone of the one preceding it. That tone being camp.
There's no coffee here in Nilbog, it's the devil's drink!
And then we crank the camp a notch higher before a sudden smash back to David Cronenberg. And then, I'm really not sure what the tone is supposed to be in this scene, but we do get this Oscar moment.
Nilbog! It's goblin spelled backwards!
Wait, why did he think he'd be able to talk to Grandpa Ghost in the mirror? He's only done that once before. We've seen him just materialize in the rocking chair, or sort of cloak himself or whatever on top of the hitchhiker. Why would he think that the mirror thing is what Grandpa Ghost just does? Whatever. And then we get a bit of food horror with Troy Baker. Huh, I guess he spits. Lame. And then the film suddenly becomes a lesbian porn.
She is very appetizing. Appetizing?
This movie is gayer than Ben and Arthur, and I love it. And then we cut back to 70s backwoods horror with a bit of a cult flavor. And then it's a teen sex comedy again with some hilarious domestic abuse. Then we just return to the previous scene, and somehow the obvious assault of his son does not clue in the dad that something is up.
Mr. and Miss Presence, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be at my house.
We had car trouble.
Car troubles? It's been like half a week. Then the movie becomes a Sam Raimi film.
No, please, ma'am, I beg you, what are you gonna do to me with that?
And then we get, I don't know, a return to 70s backwoods horror? This is also where the horror breaks down entirely, because the only scare this movie knows is, will they eat it or not? And it just doesn't work anymore. And it especially doesn't work in this scene, because Joshua gets very quickly whisked away to his bedroom, and so he's not able to stop the family from eating, and the tension's killed because you know that the family should just start immediately chowing down, considering how hungry they should be. So you know it's just the writer keeping them from eating. So Joshua's got no agency, the family has no agency. The only character who arguably has any kind of agency is Grandpa Ghost, and he's not even a character, he's an info dump vending machine. And then Credence becomes a goblin and jumps through the mirror to attack Joshua, because she can just do that now. And now Grandpa Ghost has physical form. Okay. And then Credence regenerates her hand by sticking it into Stonehenge. I'm not kidding, that's what it is.
Here it is. The Stonehenge magic stone.
It regenerates her hand complete with manicure and red nail polish. And then another scene where I really do not know what the tone is supposed to be.
Hurry, let's put some fuel on the fire.
Grandpa Ghost is incredibly casual about the possibility of lighting the family on fire. But then Preacher David Heavener takes the Molotov cocktail, and then he uses Stonehenge magic to give Grandpa Ghost a heart attack.
Go back to hell!
But Grandpa Ghost uses hell magic to light Preacher David Heavener on fire.
Are you really in hell?
No! But I know a trick that a friend of mine who was there taught me!
Am I on drugs? Am I dead? The family now finally fucking realizes that the goblins are real, and they retreat into the home, as the movie shifts gears into a home invasion / siege movie. We then get this scene, which I'm pretty sure is from one of the shittier seasons of Power Rangers. We return to the siege movie this kid's horror flick has become.
There's sandwiches for tonight in here. It will go easier if you eat them. You'll make our work easier. Otherwise, we'll be forced to kill you violently.
It would be a shame. The blood would mix with the meat, and we'd have to put them in vinegar for the whole night.
Before abruptly segueing into something out of The Naked Gun. Oh, thank God, I'm not crazy, she is hot. But wait, she just used magic to transform because she's pissed at Joshua and wants to kill him, but decides instead to go to the camper she did not know about, to kill the last boy she did not know about. And then the family holds a seance to contact Grandpa Ghost / opens the Ark of the Covenant, and this whisks Joshua away to Credence's fuck pad for some reason, but also transports a goblin into Joshua's place? Why did Grandpa Ghost do that? The prick? And then, seriously, what the fuck tone is this?
A double-decker bologna sandwich!
So then, the family, who all know where Credence's fuck pad is for some reason, just run there, I guess, and they all touch it and think happy thoughts or some shit, and then all the goblins die. Good. Finally, the film ends with the family returning home, only to be ambushed by the goblin family they swapped houses with in a fuck you twist ending. Just ignore the fact that the goblin family never actually left Nilbog, as was established very prominently halfway through the film. You might be wondering just how a movie can have such wildly varying tone shifts, and I think part of that probably lies in the production. You see, Troll 2 was an Italian production. The writer and director and all of the production side of the crew, they were all Italian, but they were shooting the movie for an English language audience in Utah, where they just hired locals who thought they were coming out to be extras to be the leads of the film. Like the dad actor, he's actually a dentist. This movie is the only serious acting he's ever done in his life. You can tell.
Now remember, where the farmer waits, we're country people.
So there was a significant language barrier between the cast and the crew, meaning that when they were just shooting scenes, the cast probably didn't have much of an idea of what the movie was supposed to be, and so they all just sort of wing it. And the result is a movie with like a half a dozen different tones depending on which actors happen to be in which scene. And when it's all just flying at you like that, it's really disorienting. But I think I have a general idea of what Troll 2 is sort of trying to do. And it's sort of weird because this is a movie in 1990, which for most of it is riffing on themes of 80s genres. But I think if we really want to understand Troll 2, we ought to wind back the clock even further. Back to the 1970s. Back to the Grindhouse. In fact, we're going back even further than that, to 1962, to the release of a film called Mondo Cane. Mondo Cane was an Italian documentary, which was less documentary and more just a montage of mostly falsified footage of various countries' cultural practices presented to be shocking to a Western audience. The movie was a huge international smash hit, and actually inspired an entire genre of films called Mondo films, which began as imitation documentaries, but soon all manner of films were calling themselves Mondo if they were trying to sell themselves on shock value. One of these films was called Mondo Brutale, which is actually just the German release name for a film you might know better under its original title, The Last House on the Left. For those who don't know, The Last House on the Left was the directorial debut of Wes Craven, who, a few years later, would go on to make the film that, in my mind, best exemplifies the genre that Troll 2 is sort of trying to be. The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, Troll 2 is basically The Hills Have Eyes, but stupid. It and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are both great examples of a particular genre of 1970s horror that might be called the proto-slasher, but I prefer the term white people in peril. Now, I can't really prove a connection between American horror and the next genre I need to discuss, which is the Italian cannibal horror genre. That was why I brought up Mondo films, because they were sort of the progenitor to the Italian cannibal genre, best known to English language audiences from the film Cannibal Holocaust, which is the next film I want to talk about because it, arguably, is also a white people in peril story. Okay, so what do I mean by white people in peril? It's basically my informal term for a sorta subgenre of horror wherein a group of people, always white, usually a family unit, go on some kind of vacation or trip or expedition and are imperiled by the local population. With The Hills Have Eyes, you got a group of like deranged cannibals or whatever. With Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you got a family of hillbilly cannibals. With Cannibal Holocaust, you got a tribe of indigenous cannibals. And with Troll 2, you got a village of vegetarian cannibalistic goblins. And normally, that should be a three-part oxymoron, but Troll 2 is very, very stupid.
Who are you? Are you one of the monsters?
Well, I've been called a lot of things, but not a monster.
So, through the cannibal subgenre, the central ideas of the white people in peril subgenre would survive in Italy into the mid-1980s, where in America, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre had paved the way for the eventual evolution of the slasher genre. In fact, Troll 2's producer, Joe D'Amato, actually produced a cannibal film of his own, Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals. And if you're really wondering, no, there's no actual connection to those softcore Emmanuel films, except there sort of is. You know what, just Google it. I've been talking about 70s Italian horror for a few solid minutes now. I don't have time to stop and discuss the fucking comparative taxonomy of the fucking Emmanuel films. So, Perhaps this is how an English-language film in 1990 finds itself riffing on the ideas of a genre that in America had been out of fashion for close to 20 years. Unless I'm just full of shit. I have no idea what I'm talking about. That's possible.
Grab the pot and drag me out quick!
I'll try.
But Troll 2's exploitation film DNA doesn't do much to help explain why it's such an enduring cult film. That, I believe, lies in the film's jarring tone shifts, not despite them. Troll 2 is confusing and disorienting, but in the best way, where you just can't wait to see what insanity will happen next. And the film just keeps on topping itself. It is a slow burn compared to something like The Room, which floors it with the crazy from scene 1, but that helps it just keep pummeling you with twist after weird twist.
What's the matter? Aren't you hungry?
Actually, I like popcorn.
The only thing that keeps it from being the perfect, fun, bad movie is also the thing that keeps it from working as a legitimate horror movie. The characters have no agency, and the plot has no momentum. You never really care what's happening to anybody or feel like they're in real peril, and you might think that that wouldn't hamper the watchability of a movie that you're watching for ironic comedy value, but it does mean that Troll 2 drags towards the end. Thankfully, it's a short sit at only 94 minutes, and the editing keeps the pace brisk, even when the plot is floundering. There's also a handful of really fun performances. You got the smarmy Arnold, the way too sincere Dad, and the campy as all fuck Credence, who are all scene stealers. Troll 2 is an excellent entry-level bad movie, and I heartily recommend it to anybody who's open to the idea of watching a bad movie for chuckles. It doesn't quite hold up as well on repeat viewings as something like The Room does, because so much of what makes Troll 2 watchable is just the shock value of all the weirdness as it unfolds in front of you. But if you're planning a bad movie night with your friends, Troll 2 is a terrific opener, a real crowd pleaser of a bad movie. So, until next week, when we're going to be covering Birdemic 2: The Resurrection, I'm Daniel Steckley, and this has been a bad review. I'd like to take a moment to thank Lyle Groniger, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, for being such a generous and loyal backer of the show. If you would like to have your name featured in the credits or read aloud by me, you can support the show at www.patreon.com/DStecks. And for those already featured here, thank you again for your loyal support. If I have misspelled or mispronounced your name, please contact me via the Patreon message system, since I do not get notifications when I receive messages via YouTube. And for all the fans continuing to watch bad reviews as I leave Sonichu behind forever, thank you. You are all the reason why I keep on making videos. Thank you so much.